So Congress, United States Congress, has two chambers. One is the House of Representatives and one is the Senate, and they are distinctly different. We get that model from the bicameral legislation from the Constitutional Convention of 1787, that compromise that said that the House of Representatives would be allocated by population. Larger states would have more power in the House, and the Senate would be equal representation, 2 members per state. And up until the 17th Amendment, those senators were chosen by the states, chosen by the state legislatures. Now, after the 17th Amendment in the 20th and 21st centuries, the people, elect the senators. In the House of Representatives, it's a larger house, 435 members, because it is based on population. And control, that concept of control, is really important to understand. It is everything to the members of that body in the House of Representatives. Almost everything is determined by which party has control. And so on Election Day, we're currently in the 115th Congress. This November, we will elect the new 116th Congress that'll be seated in January of 2019. And so at that point, they will count up the number of members, and whichever party has more than 218 will have the majority. Currently in the 115th Congress, the Republicans have a 20-point majority, so they have a large number of members over that needed 218, and so they are said to have control. And so I put this elephant there because that's the symbol of the Republican Party. And it's crucial. It's everything. It determines who the leaders are. The 435 members vote on the Speaker of the House, and that Speaker is going to obviously be from the party that has the majority because they'll have more votes. And all of the leadership positions are going to follow with elections. And so the Republicans are in charge. The Republicans have a much easier time passing legislation as long as they themselves can all agree on it, which has not always happened with either party. There are often splits between and among the party. But that control is really crucial. And so at the end of the 115th Congress, we're seeing a lot of Republicans decide not to run for re-election. And one of the reasons is because there's a lot of people who believe that the Democrats have a chance to take over. It'll be difficult because of the seats are so safe for the Republican Party that there aren't a lot of competitive seats, but certainly more than we have seen in the past. And so a huge number of Republicans are retiring and leaving rather than face defeat, or even just face a really competitive, hard election. And so that also helps the Democratic Party because it's easier to run in an open seat than it is to run against a longtime incumbent with lots of money and name recognition. All of those factors that help keep an incredibly unpopular Congress with, I think the last public opinion poll I saw said that it had about a 9% approval rating. And, yet they have a 90% re-election rate. So there's clearly factors that are helping people stay in office far beyond just who's doing the better job. So the House is going to pass legislation that the Republicans favor. The size of the offices are going to be larger for the Republicans than for the Democratic members. The budgets of their staff are going to be larger. So everything is sort of centered around that concept of control. So it is better to be in the majority than in the minority. And a number of Republicans are probably going to leave because they see that possibility. Now, it would take a lot for the Democrats to get that control. But it is more likely than we see in recent years to switch that power. Now, in any election, midterm election of a president's term, it's more likely that the party that doesn't hold the White House gets more votes. We've seen that in every single midterm, except the one exception was George W. Bush's 2002 election, where he didn't lose. Republicans actually gained in power. But a lot of that was because of the terrorist attacks of 2001. And we were still fresh from that in 2002 when the Republicans were passing the Patriot Act and really acting in response to that. So that's the one exception. Every other election, Barack Obama had a Democratic majority in his first 2 years and lost it badly in the midterm election when the Republicans took over. Bill Clinton, it was elected in 1992, and then the Republican Revolution of 1994 came along where Republicans won a huge majority. Sometimes it's in response to the president, and sometimes it's a way for the voters to sort of balance things out and create gridlock, because very little gets done when there's one party in the White House and one party controlling Congress. But that's the House of Representatives. So moving over to the Senate, the same Republican control there. With only 100 members in the Senate, you need fewer to have a majority. There's 100 because there are 50 states. If there was a new state created or joined the United States, then we would see that number go up. There's very little possibility that the number will go up because California splits in 3, as is on the ballot in November. The reason that I don't think it'll pass is because, number one, it's not particularly popular. Number two, it's a really complex issue to divide a state. And the initiative process is not necessarily the best way to do that. But also because the rest of Congress would have to approve it. So California can't just vote on its own to split. It would have to be a constitutional issue where the rest of the United States would have to allow us. And I have very little faith in the idea that the rest of the United States would want California to have more power in Congress than we already do. In the House of Representatives, we are the largest state with obviously 40 million people. That makes sense. We have 53 members in the House. When you think of, Wyoming has 1. A lot of states only have 1 representative, and we have 53. Everybody's equal in the Senate with 2, and so the idea that they would want us to have a total of 6 is really unlikely. For those of you who haven't traveled, who don't know a lot about the rest of the United States, they hate us. They hate us for a number of reasons, but one is our political power. So they very unlikely to want to give us more. So right now, it's a majority, but a really close majority for the Republicans. There are 2 independents. Bernie Sanders is a Democratic Socialist, and then Angus King used to be a Republican in Maine, and he resigned from the Republican Party as an independent. But both of them vote with the Democratic Party, and so even though it's, they're independent, they caucus, they join together with the Democratic Party. So we count them because when there's a vote for leadership, they vote with the Democrats. So that's the federal legislature. Let's come back to Sacramento and look at the California legislature. First of all, if you've never been, go. It's a beautiful building. It's a beautiful legislative setup. All 120 legislators are here in this one building, where in Washington, D.C., it's so huge that they're spread out among multiple buildings. So, again, we have the same format in the California legislature, with California Assembly having 80 members. It's green inside. with 55 Democrats and 25 Republicans. The symbol, the donkey symbol for the Democrats is here. It's almost a surety that the Democrats will maintain control. They have a 2/3 majority by a hair, and so they certainly have no problem holding on to a majority. In the California Senate, there are 40 members, 27 Democrats and 13 Republicans. So again, very small number. Both the Assembly and the Senate are based on population. So there are 2 Assembly seats for every 1 Senate seat. And that's how that divide works.